this just hit different than all the other things I had been looking at. And I'm like, good, it should, because this is different. If you lead with love and put people first and help them with all these other things, the real estate's like the byproduct of caring about people.
Is there anybody, or can you think of anybody that was the most impactful or influential on your entrepreneurial road that you've been on and where you're at today?
Like one winner or like over time?
I guess over time.
Well, I mean, you got to go with your father first, right? I mean, at least for me, he retired as a Teamster, so he was a truck driver, not necessarily an entrepreneur. But I don't remember him complaining about going to work once in my life, right? He loved to go to work. He loved to provide for his family, and I love to provide. That's gonna make me, hit me. I love to provide for my family, right? I have two sons, and so your parents, who's in front of you, they started a vending machine business. Like, they were entrepreneurial. They built their own houses. Like, that was my life, right? They were around me, and then I had my cousin who's telling me about the $800,000 deal. So we're like at family reunions, we're talking about real estate. We're talking about, these things. And then there's people in my life that believed in me when others didn't, that saw something in me when others didn't. And even the senior living thing alone was a guy I worked with for over a decade. We were buying, a couple hundred houses a year. And I was talking about this. Hey, it seems, the stereotype story is this: dad died 8 years ago. Mom's been doing the best she can. She fell down again. This time she has to move into senior living. I said, who's going right to the senior living communities? And he said, you should go do that. And so I was empowered to go do it. And guys, guess what? I did it in 2011. I did it wrong. I showed up as an investor. I showed up as a real estate agent. Why? Because I am an investor. I am a real estate agent. And I'm stubborn enough to keep going. I knew the industry was like peanut butter and chocolate if I could just figure out how to put it together. And that's what I have now, is like, this is the right way. And I'll tell you all the pitfalls of how I did it before. And so, there's a lot of people that have been influential to me, but there's a few out there that were just like, you should go do that. Believe in somebody enough to say, go do that with your time.
Okay. I love it.
Thank you.
It's always different. I love hearing the different perspectives from people. It's interesting, for sure. So what are some maybe if I was a new investor coming in and I'm interested in Mom's House, like, what are some key factors that maybe you would share, or tips?
Yeah.
To somebody new that might be interested in something like this.
So why, when everybody starts off, do they get into text message blasting, bandit signs, and cold calling? Why do we start with those three when we're new? It's because it's the cheapest way to get going. Because
100%.
we're not valuing our time at all. Like, I've got some time, I'll put some time in it, but we don't have a lot of money to spend, right? And so I'm not talking about spending any money. I'm talking about building relationships with the right people, the right stakeholders in senior living. So that also takes your time. But instead of building a one-off postcard that's maybe going to get you one deal if you send 10,000 of them, I'm talking about building a relationship with an oil well that will feed you for the next 10 to 15 years. Guys, I don't know the lifetime value of my relationships yet, because I'm still doing deals with people I met in 2011. So what would you pay for one relationship that's gotten you 100 deals over the next 10 years? That's what I'm talking about. And so people say, well, Phil, I can't network. And I'm like, well, I said, have you ever bought a house from a real estate agent? They're like, yeah, all the time. And I go, well, how'd you meet the real estate agent? I networked. I'm like, have you ever bought a house from a wholesaler? They're like, yeah, I bought a house. How'd you meet them? Oh, I was at a RIA group. So you do network. You just don't know how to network in senior living yet, right? And so I teach a very different thing. And my advice is, if you're only transactional and you are, don't even start. What I mean by that is unloving. If you're not loving, because a leopard can't change his spots for very long. The industry will spit you out anyway. Don't waste your time to waste my time. But if you think you can put people first, and this hits so many of my students that come in, they say, this just hit different than all the other things I had been looking at. And I'm like, good, it should, because this is different. If you lead with love and put people first and help them with all these other things, the real estate's like the byproduct of caring about people.
Yeah.
And that's not for everyone. That's not for most, in fact, I'd say.